A frustrating shootout defeat in Las Vegas now gives the Blackhawks 6 losses in their last 7 games.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome on in to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your number one sports podcasting network, where we bring you your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Can go and give me a follow on X at JackBushman2. Make sure to check out my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you don't miss any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And have to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and download the FanDuel app now, or simply check out FanDuel.com to get $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, happy Wednesday, Blackhawks fans. No luck for the Blackhawks last night in Las Vegas as they fell 4-3 in the shootout to the Vegas Golden Knights and now fall to 1-6 in games that require overtime this season. However, this game kind of reminded me a lot of a contest back in the first week of the regular season against the Boston Bruins, where the Blackhawks probably deserve better than what they got in extra time. They were the more dominant team in OT, leading 6-2 in scoring chances and 6-2 in shots on goal as well. Connor Bedard, Frankie Nazar, Ryan Donato at the buzzer, and Ilya Mikheyev all had primetime chances to pot the game-winning goal. The Hawks also caught Shea Theodore on the ice without a stick for like a full minute, giving them a 3-on-2 advantage. But Carter Hart, man, my oh my, say what you want about the guy, but in his team debut and first little bit of NHL action in nearly 2 years, was the star of the game for Vegas, coming up huge time and time again in extra time to help get this game into a shootout. And then Theodore wound up being the one to put home the game winner in the shootout to give his team the extra point. But not only did the Blackhawks, in my opinion, deserve better in overtime, I thought they played well enough to win this game in regulation. They were the better team throughout the course of this game. I thought it was a really strong road showing in a building where they've only won 3 times since the Vegas Golden Knights have became a franchise, I should say, back in 2017. They outchanced them, they outshot them, and also limited Vegas to only 14 high-danger chances total in the contest. And not to mention, 2 of their 3 goals in the game came off of lucky breaks as they were banked in off of defender skates. Wyatt Kaiser in the opening minute, just 27 seconds in, and then Matt Grzelcyk later on during the second period. But what I will say is that this was the 4th time in 7 games that the Hawks have blown a lead in the third period and gone on to lose. And to have the breakdown that they did defensively off of the rush with under 3 minutes remaining to allow Vegas to tie the game was completely unacceptable and very frustrating because, as I just mentioned, their other 2 goals came off of fortunate bounces, the puck being pinballed a little bit into the back of the cage. But they really didn't have all too many, clear-cut breakdowns or losses in coverage throughout the course of this game. And when they did, Spencer Knight bailed them out. But this was one of their uglier defensive sequences on the night. Louis Crevier, Alex Vlasic, Frank Nazar, and Tyler Bertuzzi, all with some poor positioning, all getting caught, puck watching a little bit. Oliver Moore also with a very ill-advised change late in the game allows Braden Bowman on his third whack to go and tie it up 3-3. Spencer Knight did all he could in that moment. I think he made the initial save on Theodore, then might have even stopped the first 2 attempts from Braden Bowman, but on his 3rd or 4th effort, whatever it may have been, got the puck into the net to tie it up. No favors done whatsoever by the Blackhawks defense there for Spencer Knight. And earlier on in the season, I just feel like these types of letdowns late in games, the Blackhawks were finding ways to win these close contested matchups and, score the clutch goals in the third period to go and win by 1 goal. But that just really hasn't been the case here over these last couple of weeks as the Hawks have dropped down to 3, 5, and 6 in 1-goal contests of their 6 losses in their last 5 games, or in their last 7 games, 5 of them have come by 1 goal. The only outlier was obviously the embarrassing showing against the Buffalo Sabres a few Fridays ago. But these games that the Blackhawks were winning a little bit earlier in the season and finding a way to come out of 2 points with, they're just not able to do the same over these last couple of weeks, which is super frustrating. So while I do believe the Blackhawks deserve better than what they got and had some tough luck in Sin City, which is known to be a thing, of course, they also shot themselves in the foot late in regulation in a game which they played well enough to win and deserve to come away with 2 points out of. On the bright side, though, there were still plenty of positive takeaways from last night in Las Vegas. Wanted to start with Oliver Moore, who I thought probably had his best game as an NHLer so far, scoring his 3rd goal of the season to answer right back for the Blackhawks after allowing that opening goal just 27 seconds in. Both teams scored goals in the game's first 90 seconds. Oliver Moore with a big-time response, and what a shot we saw here from Ollie for his 3rd tally of the season. You know, we've seen him score some beauties with his wrister down in the AHL with the Ice Hogs before he got called up, but haven't really seen it up in the NHL during his current stint up until last night. That was a howitzer of a shot that rang off the post and went in, and Moore almost had a second goal in the opening period just a couple of moments later on a 2-on-1 rush with Frankie Nazar, but his shot just sailed high of Carter Hart's glove. But I thought the activity, the pace that Oliver Moore was playing with, I also thought he did a really good job, as he always does, of hounding down opposing puck carriers. Real noteworthy performance from Oliver Moore. And by the way, he was skating on the Blackhawks second line along with Frankie Nazar and Tyler Bertuzzi. And Blashill talked before the game almost similarly to how I talked on yesterday's episode when discussing Frankie Nazar. And you know, I said I would like him to maybe stop trying to stick handle his way through defenders so much and just kind of get back to using those wheels. Well, that's actually why Blashill put Moore and Frank back together, because he wants them to try and use their speed to create more for that second line offensively. And of course, after, you know, breaking down Nazar potentially still playing a little bit banged up on yesterday's show, I compared his stats from October, the first month of the season, to November, where he didn't score a goal for the entire month. Well, I thought Nazar had his best outing in quite a while last night, and the wheels were back. Showed off his strong skating ability, generated a breakaway opportunity in the 3rd period that led to a penalty on defenseman Zach Whitecloud. Honestly, probably should have been a penalty shot there for Frankie Nazar, but I love to see him using that high elite level speed that he possesses. That's just been absent from his game. That was absent from his game for a majority of November. I thought he got back to what he does best last night, and I thought it was a really strong showing from that second line of Moore, Nazar, and Tyler Bertuzzi. Nazar, by the way, had the secondary assist on Oliver Moore's goal, which extended his point streak to 3 games. Also, I mean, we definitely got to talk about number 98, Connor Bedard, right? In case you didn't know already, the kid is absolutely nasty. What a jaw-dropping goal from Bedard in the 3rd period. I thought, I believe it was Steve Levy along with Kevin Weeks calling the game for ESPN Plus last night. I thought their hearts were about to jump out of their chest the way they got so excited after Bedard scored this goal. Gets a 1-on-1 rush going up against Shea Theodore. And by the way, great couple of plays made by Tyler Bertuzzi in the defensive zone, and or not Tyler Bertuzzi, excuse me, Ryan Green in the defensive zone, along with Matt Grzelcyk just a couple of moments prior to spring Bedard for that rush. Vegas had a good look from out in front, but Grzelcyk did a really good job of tying up a Golden Knight stick. And then Green blocked a shot and then made a really savvy play to chip the puck up along the wall that allowed Bedard to get this one-on-one opportunity with Theodore, enters along the left side of the offensive zone, skates back to his right, goes inside to the outside, and then shoots against the grain and goes bar down over Carter Hart's blocker for his 17th goal of the season. Super clean celly by Bedard as well after that. But my goodness, add another one to the highlight reel. One of the best goals of Connor Bedard's young career, and he wasn't done in the shootout. The lone tally for the Blackhawks came on a dazzling couple of moves by Bedard, a few stick handles, and then showing off the patience to pull it back and tuck it through Carter Hart's 5-hole. Carter Hart might be seeing Connor Bedard in his nightmares a little bit. And Shea Theodore had to go and pick up his jockstrap off of the ice after Bedard made that move around him to score his goal. Of course, though, Theodore would go on to get the last laugh with the shootout winner. But Connor Bedard, man, just making incredible plays on a nightly basis. Would have loved for that to have ended up as the game winner for the Blackhawks, but as I broke down, a brutal defensive breakdown with under 3 minutes to play eliminated that from being the case. But Connor Bedard continues to prove what a nasty and dominant player he is here in his third NHL season. On Bedard's goal, by the way, Ryan Green did pick up an assist, which extended his point streak, just like Frankie Nazar, to 3 games. And Green now has points in 6 of his last 9 contests. Maybe wasn't as notable of a showing for Green last night as it's been in the past couple. I don't think he had, all that many dangerous scoring opportunities like he's been getting consistently when up on the top line. But again, made some really strong defensive plays, which is his bread and butter, and then turned defense into offense, which is Jeff Blashill's theme, right? He talks all the time about turning defense into offense. And that was a perfect example by Ryan Green, as well as Matt Grzelcyk. And Connor Bedard, too, I thought made some really sound defensive plays in this contest. One of them being out battling Mark Stone, a very strong two-way player, grizzled veteran, been there, done that. Vegas is a different team when Mark Stone is healthy. But Bedard, showing off his elite hockey IQ on the defensive side of things as well, chases down a loose puck and then out battles Mark Stone to get a clear in the D zone. Just another example of the strides that Bedard is making in all aspects of his game. And again, the defense is helping lead to offense, and I know that's making Jeff Blashill a very happy man. Last but certainly not least, got to talk about the junkyard dog, Tyler Bertuzzi. Oh, that dog of mine. Red hot remains Bertuzzi. Took advantage of a horrible giveaway by Carter Hart. The Blackhawks gave him a rude welcome back as Oliver Moore wristed that shot off the post in the first 90 seconds, and then Hart had this dreadful turnover. Bertuzzi knocks the puck out of midair and then chips it a little bit over Hart for his 14th goal of the season and 11th now over the last 11 games. And how about this stat for Tyler Bertuzzi that I didn't even notice until I saw the Blackhawks social media accounts post it? Bert now has 5 consecutive multi-point games on the road. I mean, this dude, he's not a kid any longer, but has been absolutely phenomenal for the Blackhawks and chipping in so many different ways. Obviously, the offense is getting all the attention, but I love the grit and determination that he plays with and makes a lot of great effort plays, and I thought he had a couple of those last night as well. So Tyler Bertuzzi, Connor Bedard continue to chip in, but sadly, a costly goal that they surrendered with under 3 minutes to play in overtime winds up aiding in a 4-3 shootout loss in Sin City. Lots of positive takeaways out of Las Vegas, but the Blackhawks still wind up losing for the 6th time in their last 7 games. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, I'll get into more on Connor Bedard and talk about him being named the NHL's 3rd star of the month for November and the latest whispers on his chances of making Team Canada. First, got to talk to you all about one of today's sponsors here on Locked On Blackhawks, which is Drip Drop. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, my energy, my mood, and even my skin. And that's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. And it delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula that's trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. So hydration has just become non-negotiable for me. And Drip Drop has helped me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. And right now, Drip Drop is offering our podcast listeners 20% off on your first order when you go to dripdrop.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Again, that's dripdrop.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get 20% off. Go and stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. As always, before I get into segment 2, just a quick reminder to please go smash that like button and to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. And if you're tuning in through an audio platform, go and rate and review the show, preferably with a 5-star rating. Those always put a big smile on my face. And it's all 100% free, will not cost you anything, not even a single penny, and helps me in a massive way in growing my platform. Segment 2, here on today's show. Yesterday, I went through Connor Bedard's November stats, 10 goals, 13 assists, and a whopping 23 points. Also, of those 13 assists, 11 were primary helpers, which led the league during that stretch. And Bedard was also top 10 in the NHL in power play assists, power play points, goals, and assists for the month. And because of that, number 98 was named the NHL's number 3 star of the month for November. Nathan MacKinnon and Jason Robertson, by the way, were the first and second stars. So what an incredible month it was for the NHL's Central Division, But Connor Bedard, my oh my, flipped a switch in November. And some other intriguing stats here. Bedard factored in on 52.3% of the Blackhawks goals in the month, which is absolutely ridiculous. After last night's jaw-dropping goal, he's now up to 38 points on the season, which is good for third in the league, and also is 15 points more than what Tyler Bertuzzi has, who's over a point per game pace so far for the Blackhawks, second on the team in points. And Connor Bedard has 15 more than he does. And also, only 8 members of the Blackhawks have reached double-digit points at this time, while Connor Bedard is already on the verge of 40. And of course, the Blackhawks still find themselves right in the thick of a playoff battle. They're technically tied with the Seattle Kraken with 28 points for that second wildcard spot, but Seattle does have the better points percentage, so the Blackhawks are on the outside looking in. But regardless, it's obviously been a much more competitive start than I think anyone anticipated, and Connor Bedard obviously has been a driving force behind that. Earlier on in the season, and I still think Spencer Knight has been outstanding, right? But I do feel like Spencer Knight, as good as Bedard was earlier on in the season, Spencer Knight was probably the Blackhawks MVP. They were more so where they were at because of Spencer Knight. Well, I feel like that's kind of turned in recent weeks as Bedard has flipped that switch. And now I think undoubtedly he's been the Blackhawks MVP and finds himself right in the middle of the MVP conversation in the entire NHL. He's right there in the Art Ross race for the most points. Nathan MacKinnon is just a man on a mission for the Colorado Avalanche as he added another 2 goals last night and yet another win for Colorado, 3-1 over Vancouver. But man, Connor Bedard, I mean, I'm running out of things to say about this kid. And I just want to know, is Hockey Canada watching this? Because if they are, I don't know how you leave this kid off of your team for the Olympic roster, which, by the way, I mean, there are definitely some concerns going on about the Olympics, not only with, the construction issues that I talked about on the show probably about a month ago now. Well, according to Pete DeBoer, who's working on the coaching staff for Team Canada, the rinks that they've put together are now somehow smaller than NHL ice surfaces, which, I mean, I don't even know how that's possible. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So there are definitely some worries about how things are developing as we're now, just 2 months away from the Olympic hockey tournament kicking off. But knock on wood, fingers crossed that this thing does wind up happening. I don't know how you leave Connor Bedard watching from his couch back at home. And I've been someone, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, who's kind of outspoken going into the year and earlier on in the season about Bedard probably getting shafted by Hockey Canada just because I've thought, off of the Four Nations face-off win last year, I don't think they're going to be cutting all that many players from that roster. And they also reportedly want to go with experienced guys who have been there and done that at the highest level of professional hockey. And obviously, Connor Bedard, as a 20-year-old here in just his third NHL season, hasn't gotten those experience with a really poor Blackhawks team up until this point in time. But with the way that he's been producing right now and looking like a top 5 player in the NHL, arguably outside of Nathan MacKinnon, the best player in the NHL this season, I think he's kind of leaving Team Canada with no choice here. I've kind of changed my thoughts on the matter because Connor Bedard has simply been that outrageously good. And according to Frank Saravalli, who joined the Blackhawks CHSN pregame show ahead of the contest on Sunday against the Anaheim Ducks, Frank Saravalli also agrees that Bedard has played himself into one of the potential open spots for Team Canada because he's just been so gosh darn impressive so far in year 3. I know these rumblings and rumors, they can change on a daily basis considering what's going down, but the greater body of work through 26 games tells me that Connor Bedard has forced his way onto this team. We'll see what winds up happening is official rosters are due in just 1 month's time. And of course, there's all the worries right now about the Olympic ice rinks. But Connor Bedard, man, has been the MVP of the Blackhawks. He's in the MVP race in the entire NHL. And I don't know how you leave a kid who's doing all of that watching the Olympics from back home. All right, there are my thoughts on the Connor Bedard Canada front and also Bedsy being named the NHL's 3rd star of the month for November. Coming up in just a moment before I close out today's episode, do still want to get into the latest updates that we have on goaltender Laurent Brossoit. But first, got to show some love to another one of today's sponsors here on Locked On Blackhawks, which is FanDuel. The NBA season is here, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Can also wager on Matas Buzelis, Kobe White, and other key members of the Bulls with their player props. Plus, you can also combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a much bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late fourth quarter push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go and head on over to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and run to sign up and play your game now with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 3, Laurent Brossoit, as rumored to be the case last weekend by Elliot Friedman, has officially been activated off of the injured non-roster and has been assigned to the Rockford Ice Hogs of the AHL to begin his conditioning stint. As I said yesterday, I really didn't think this would be happening so soon. I thought the conditioning stint for Brossoit would probably be a little bit closer to Christmas, but seems like he's pretty close to being ready to return to game action. And the Ice Hogs have a couple of games coming up this weekend on Friday and Saturday against the Colorado Eagles. So I figure should all go well, should Brossoit keep trending in the right direction, there's a real good chance that he's going to get the nod in between the pipes in one of those 2 games to showcase his stuff in order to be likely dealt by the Blackhawks here in the not-so-distant future. I would imagine, as I discussed on yesterday's episode, there just isn't room for Brossoit in the Blackhawks organization now, with Spencer Knight being secured as the number 1, signing that 3-year contract extension in the summer. And then Arvid Soderblom obviously returned as an RFA this past summer, inking a 2-year deal. And even if he has been pretty shaky in these last 2 starts, giving up 13 goals on his last 60 shots faced, I do feel like recency bias has kind of kicked in with Soderblom, and that kind of happens with him a lot. I feel like people didn't give him credit whatsoever for his opening 6 starts of the year, where I believe he owned 6 or 7. I can't believe I just did that. Ignore that, Blackhawks fans. But in those first handful of starts, Soderblom only gave up more than 3 goals 1 single time, which was in his first start of the year. And while Laurent Brossoit, I'm sure there are people out there being like, well, Brossoit would be a better backup option, would help solidify the Blackhawks net a little bit comparatively to Soderblom in the backup role. Well, they still did give him that 2-year contract extension, so they want to see this out. They want to see what he has in store, but I will say I wasn't the biggest fan of that 2-year extension. More so because Drew Commesso in the pipelines, I mean, has really done everything in his power down in Rockford to earn that NHL call-up. But just like the Laurent Brossoit situation right now, because Soderblom signed that 2-year deal, there's just really not a spot up in the NHL for either of those 2 guys. And for Brossoit's case, that likely makes him a prime candidate to be involved in a trade in some point over the future for the Blackhawks. As far as teams that could potentially be interested, I mentioned yesterday, obviously all eyes are on the Edmonton Oilers with how poor Stuart Skinner has been as their starter. Calvin Pickard hasn't fared any better as the backup. They have the lowest team save percentage in the entire NHL. Laurent Brossoit also began his NHL career as a member of the Edmonton Oilers, so they're familiar with him. Stan Bowman, the general manager for the Oilers, obviously was the GM for the Blackhawks a long time ago now, but there's, of course, those ties to the Blackhawks organization. So I do think Edmonton makes sense as the most likely club to go and acquire Brossoit, but there are some other teams around the league who could be looking for some goaltending help. The Vancouver Canucks are without Thatcher Demko right now, and he's obviously dealt with injuries these last couple of years. So while it seems to be minor, there's no guarantee of when exactly he's going to be returning or if that injury is, going to be nagging him throughout the rest of the way. So there's the potential that Vancouver could be looking to add another goaltender. Winnipeg, I know some people have suggested maybe with Connor Hellebuck being down that the Jets could go and nab Laurent Brossoit from Chicago. However, according to some of the latest rumors that I've seen, the Jets aren't all that interested in going and trading for another netminder. I think they want to give Thomas Milic the opportunity as a rookie to kind of see what he has in store. And then just looking around the league, the Anaheim Ducks are dealing with injuries in goal right now as Lucas Dostal is out with an injury, and then Peter Mrazek, former Blackhawk, got injured at the United Center on Sunday. That leaves Ville Husso as their number one right now, and obviously Anaheim is in first place in the Pacific Division, so that could be an intriguing team to keep an eye on. I also wonder about the Ottawa Senators, as they're currently second in their division out in the Eastern Conference and have gotten really shaky goaltending from both Linus Ullmark and Merilainen, their backup. They both have a save percentage below .880. And then the team right behind them in the division, the Detroit Red Wings. I remember going through a preview of that matchup when they had that Sunday matinee contest back in November and looking at their two goalies, Gibson and Cam Talbot, who are both aging veterans. Not necessarily sure that was the smartest choice by Steve Yzerman going into the season, but the Red Wings are currently in third place in the division and haven't gotten good enough goaltending. Both Talbot and Gibson have a sub .890 save percentage on the year. So Anaheim, Ottawa, Detroit, three teams that I do wonder if they could be interested in securing things a little bit in between the pipes. Then obviously the Edmonton Oilers, they seem to be the likely favorites. Wouldn't count out the Vancouver Canucks either. So it seems like there could be a handful of teams looking to make an upgrade in goal sometime here over the future. And Laurent Brossoit, again, I would put it at a 95, 96, 97, maybe even 99% chance that he's going to get traded because it doesn't really make sense for the Blackhawks to keep him in the NHL as the third goaltender. That doesn't benefit anyone, not Brossoit, not Soderblom, not Knight. And he's obviously, too good to be an AHL goaltender. He's had a .927 save percentage and sub .220 goals against average the last 2 years that he has played up in the NHL. And you don't also want to be taking away starts from Drew Commesso or Stanislav Berezhnoi. So expect Laurent Brossoit to be on the move at some point. We'll see if his first conditioning start and his first appearance in a game as a member of the Blackhawks organization, despite signing in July of 2024, we'll see if that finally comes this weekend with the Rockford Ice Hogs. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes as soon as they become available, whether you're on your way to work, you're on your lunch break, on your way home from work, whatever it may be. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Can go and follow me on X at Jack Bushman2. My Strictly Blackhawks account can be found at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your days. I'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.